With October, also known as Uptober, coming up for Bitcoin and crypto, should we just be blindly bullish and expect that we're going to get a massive bull run that's going to last through the end of this year and into the next year as well? That's what I'm going to look at tonight in Bitcoin, the red ribbon. I'm the Gaussian snake. This is crypto simulation theory. I have a really wonderful Telegram group that I'd love for you to join called the Snake Pit. And I have almost 300 people in there, some really good people and analysts who join me in trying to form a group analysis of Bitcoin, not just a single person. That's something I really like. Remember, nothing in this video is to be taken as this is Bitcoin on the weekly time frame. I want to go over a few indicators with you so that you're not lost while you're following this video. This yellow curve is the 20-week whole moving average, HMA. This blue one is the 50-week whole moving average. The white one is the 100-week whole moving average. This green and red thing you see is the Gunnar EMA bull market or bear market. Bull market support band or bear market resistance band, depending on whether red is above green. Bear market when red is above green. Bull when green is above red. And this green blob and red blob are part of what's known as the Gauss ribbon. And the Gauss ribbon is a useful indicator for being able to tell what is likely to happen for price, especially when used with other indicators. So what I want to start out by doing is kind of doing a more detailed overview of something I posted on my Twitter several days ago, which is a certain pattern that I've noticed with Bitcoin every time something happens. And this something that happens is a death cross of the 50-week with the 100-week whole moving average, which means that the shorter term moving average, which is the 50-week, goes underneath the longer term moving average, which is the 100-week. Now, I'm all the way back in 2011, quarter four here, when we would have hypothetically had a death cross. Okay. Had Bitcoin's 100-week HMA existed, which it didn't, but had it existed, I think we would have had a death cross. So, while, you could maybe looked at an 85-week or 90-week or something like that. It doesn't really matter. This probably would have happened. What we typically see is a death cross forms because of bearish price action. The whole moving average is still a lagging indicator like many other moving averages, but it's less lagging. So it takes on a little bit more meaning, I feel like, than some of the simple moving averages do, but that's just my opinion. So what ended up happening with this death cross is Bitcoin found like a local bottom near it. Okay. And so on the week of November 14th of 2011, Bitcoin started pumping. And so this is sort of the pump after the dump. And then you get like another dump, a secondary dump. Now, what I want to also point out is that this Gauss ribbon or, Gauss ribbon started to shrink down as Bitcoin was going through its dump. And then when Bitcoin finally had bottomed, we started to see a red Gauss ribbon emerge. Now, keep in mind the Gauss ribbon, like all Gaussian indicators, is a lagging indicator. So this is indicating past price momentum. But notice what happened next. You got this pump into the Gauss ribbon. It pumped right into the red Gauss ribbon. And where did it stop? It stopped just below the 100-week HMA, which at the time was around, we'll just say $8 and going down like $7.82. I mean, imagine buying Bitcoin for those prices, right? And so it had this secondary dump. So we had dump, pump, dump. And it established a nice bottoming structure here underneath the 20-week, but still above the 50-week. And then we had all the moving averages kind of start to nicely stack up together, leading towards a sustained massive bull run that occurred about 6 months after all this nonsense had a chance to sort itself out. So you had like a secondary accumulation phase in here. And well, I wouldn't even call it really secondary, right? This was just a flat out bear market pump, and then you had an accumulation phase pump. Okay. So we do need to keep in mind that in 2011, 2012, this was directly following a bear market. So let's just note that, and let's move on to our next instance of this phenomenon happening. Okay, so this is at the end of the 2013 bull market. You can see that roughly in May of 2014, the Gauss ribbon started to shrink, indicating that the majority of this downward move was over, and we got death cross. The death cross of the 50 and 100 week whole moving average happened on the week of May 5th, 2014. And then we had a pump where up to the 100-week whole moving average, which at that time was around $700. And Bitcoin faced a rejection at the 100-week whole moving average. And in fact, couldn't get above it for a very long time, very, very long time. It took all the way until almost a year later for that to happen. So this was, of course, in the middle of a really long bear market. So, but still, you had this pump, you had dump, pump, dump. Okay, dump, pump, dump, right into a bear market with this phenomenon occurring. So that's two times we've seen this pattern play out. Let's move on to the next case. Now, in 2018, we have a little bit of an exception, not to the dump and then pump, but just to how high we actually pumped. 2018 had such an incredible blow off top with such a fat Gaussian ribbon that we came in really hard into this dump, and then you got the death cross. Now, this death cross unfortunately did not mark the end of Bitcoin dumping. It did for a little while, but um, Bitcoin had a pump into this death cross. In this case, it was into the death cross. Death cross happened, Gauss ribbon went red, and Bitcoin had a secondary pump into the Gauss ribbon. Neither one of these times was Bitcoin able to get to the 100 week or anywhere even close to it. I mean, over here on this pump, the price was just under 10,000. The 100 week was at 11.6K. So it just didn't do it. On this pump, we got above the 50 week, which was nice, to around 8,500. The 100 week at that time was about 10.8K. So what we could still say is that we still got the pump and then the dump. Okay. We had a pump and then a dump. But this pump was certainly nothing other than just a dead cat bounce in a bear market. But this fractal here looks nothing like what we have right now. And it doesn't, you know, it looks like almost like an exaggerated version of some of the previous. And if you go back like to the ones that we just did, right, the examples that we just did, where we had that pump and the dump, notice how this bear market was a little more gradual, right? And the one before that in 2011, right? This bear market was also a little bit more gradual. It was a strong bear market, but we did get close to that 100 week. It's Bitcoin's first bear market that it actually ever had on this chart. So yeah, if we go back to 2018, you can see that it came down in the bear market, and we just didn't have the momentum to get back up above or get even anywhere close to the 100-week HMA. So, in all three of these cases, the 100-week HMA has served as a boundary, right? Even in this case, we haven't been able to get above it. So let's move on to now this situation in March of 2020 and just preceding it is very similar, I think, in a lot of ways to where we're at right now. So you had this really impressive pump out of the 2018 bear market into 2019. And we were also in a similar macroeconomic environment. The interest rates were a bit elevated, nothing like they are now, but they were still elevated for the time. And we had Bitcoin kind of coming in for a correction after this, top to around $14,000, which was 70% of the all-time high from December of 2017. So Bitcoin got a death cross that corresponded more or less with the bottom of this drop, right around the death cross. And then Bitcoin had a pump, and it actually went above the 100-week HMA. So Bitcoin had got up to around $10,400, and it stayed up there for about 3 weeks. And notice that this pump started to happen as the Gauss ribbon was starting to expand, and then Bitcoin dumped. So we had the pump, and then we had the dump, and then the massive pump. Okay, dump, pump, dump, massive pump. This was not a very long process. Once you got this dump, it was just straight off to the races pretty much in the next few months. So this is a situation I think we might want to kind of come back to when we analyze our current situation for reference. Notice that we did get above the 100-week HMA for the first time ever in this kind of situation. So let's go ahead and take a look at 2021 and see what the next step. This was in July of 2021. We had a death cross of the 50 and the 100-week HMA after putting in a nice high around $64,000 in the March-April timeframe. And then Bitcoin, what happened on the death cross? Bitcoin found a bottom, had a bottom around. I remember this actually happening. It was around 29,500. And then what happened? We pumped straight into this Gauss ribbon, and it acted as resistance at around 52,000. You got the dump, the pump, and then the dump. And then we dumped again, and then we pumped. Okay, so dump, pump, dump, pump. This seems to happen every time. Now you could say it didn't happen in the 2018 bear market. I mean, in a sense, it did on a longer time frame. Dump, pump, dump, pump. Okay, and notice where we hit resistance the first time, right at the 100 week. Okay, so this is the last time that this death cross happened, if my memory serves me correctly, until the present day. Let's take a look at what's happening. Okay, so we find ourselves in yet another similar situation, right? We had our death cross after this. Look, we had our pump up to just slightly above the November 2021 all-time high back in March, and then we had a dump. And we had a death cross in August, the week of August 19th. That did not mark the bottom, but it was certainly close. I think we could safely say this is probably the bottom. This wick down to 52K would have probably marked the nice bottom here. And you could say, well, we did actually bottom before the death cross if you look at this wick. So I guess it just depends whether you want to look at candle bodies or wicks. Looking at a wick, the bottom happened right into the death cross. But looking at candle bodies, then you could probably say here. So I would actually probably go by the wick and say the bottom occurred in the beginning of August. And so now we're trending up again in a fairly bullish looking structure. So the question is, what happens next? Are we about to, we pumped above the 50-week HMA like we've done every single time there's been a death cross. There's no exceptions to that. Like, except I think 2018, the very first pump out of the dump. So what we would anticipate to happen is we have our dump and then pump and then dump and then pump, maybe, right? I think things might actually, I know I put out my theories in previous videos. Okay. I just give you the data the best way that I can at the time that I'm giving it to you. But I will say this. I think this pump might actually be a little bit different than past pumps. Remember the 2019 pump? Okay, that was straight out of a bear market. We got above the 100 week. If we were to do something similar to 2019, because to me, this downtrend here, which is you know, um, an expanding bearish wedge or descending broadening wedge, this is not very steep of a slope of a downtrend. So there's really not a lot of bearish momentum to overcome here. I'm actually thinking that there's a chance this move ends up being a lot more bullish than any move in Bitcoin's history under these same conditions. That's right. I think this move could very well mark the most significant move out of this type of situation that we've ever seen. Notice that the Gauss ribbon did what it's always done. It shrunk down, and now it's red, and we're pumping through it. Usually, you do pump through a red Gauss ribbon, and then you dump afterwards. So it is a bit unknown exactly how this is going to play out. I mean, truthfully, nobody knows. But look at this. We got the Gunnar EMA bullish cross. So now we have a bull market support band. It's no longer a bear market resistance band. These crosses tend to not happen super often with Bitcoin. We have seen some in short succession of each other, but they just tend to not happen on a weekly time frame very often where you get this change in trend. So we have a change in trend. We are moving up. Bitcoin is starting to become a little bit more volatile day by day. And I think there's a chance that we could actually go quite high on this pump without having a dump for a little while. Okay. Just how high can we go? And I'm kind of like revisiting, just because something's happened in the past a certain way doesn't mean it has to play out exactly the same way as it has in the past, right? It could play out differently. So I want to show you some zones that I've drawn. You've seen these before if you followed my videos. Okay, I'm going to delete this note because you already read it. But it's just like, how high could we actually go above the 100-week whole moving average before gravity pulls us back down? I do think it will be pump and dump. It's just and the question is, when we get that pump and the dump, do we just pump straight away back up? That's a big unknown for me. So keep in mind, this is just speculation. I really have nothing concrete to base this off of, but I actually think this pump may go a lot higher than it's ever gone before and may get into this green zone. Okay. As for what happens next, I don't think it's happening like that quickly, but maybe I think it could happen around elections, and we could end up pumping straight through elections, and then it could even be, into 2025 that we start to come down. Okay, I honestly don't know, right? I'm just presenting you with the data that I think we could actually break tradition here and pump past the 100 week, because the 100 week is only at about 72, 71, 72,000. Bitcoin seems like it's gearing up for a much bigger move than just a little bounce to 71K. Like if you look at a lot of technical indicators, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. I think we could breach this green zone of 90 to 130K. In fact, I even think there's a possibility that this pump that we get could potentially be the pump that ends the cycle. Okay. I think there's a possibility that we should consider that this sucker flies like, and I apologize for not, let me redraw that. Okay. Let me bring this down a little bit. I think there's a possibility that we actually get this impulsive move to near $200,000 within the first quarter of 2025, and that could actually mark our cycle ending top. It is possible, and it is something definitely to consider. This bull cycle could be over by quarter two of 2025. In fact, it wouldn't be that unexpected for it to happen based on some other technical indicators. So my initial base case was that we would pump to a near the 100-week whole moving average, face resistance, come back down to this red zone, and then take back off. We did hit my red zone back in the bottoming process. I called for this red zone a long time ago, but I'm actually not so sure we're coming back to this red zone until the bear market. So goodbye red zone. I actually feel like we'll have to revisit that. I think that, if you look at what indicators are doing, there's a good chance we're turning up for a cycle ending move. And let me show you why I believe that. So I'm going to get into some of that briefly. On balance volume is a leading indicator. It has just printed an inverse head and shoulders pattern. Okay. So this has just printed, here's your shoulder, your head, and here's your other shoulder. On balance volume, leading indicator. This is probably going up. That is very bullish for Bitcoin. So that's one indicator that's saying, yeah, this things are about to get pretty hot. This is the true strength indicator, and it had a bearish cross in May. Look at what happened here in September. September 9th, we started to have a bullish divergence. If we can get above this signal line, right, and you can see that potentially happening in October, man, we could have a crazy move back to the upside right around the elections, and we could get pretty hot. Okay, so this is another indicator that's looking very bullish to me. And just pointing out some other indicators, we could look at the um, reverse Chande momentum oscillator, and you can see that that actually just had a bullish cross, right? Just put in a series of higher lows and potentially a higher high here. After this giant red drawdown from April, we are finally turning the corner. And I think this is going to stay green for a little while. I don't think this is just going to go green and then red again. We got down to some historically low levels, and we did talk about these levels before. So I've been bullish like this entire summer. It's just I wasn't sure how exactly this was going to play out, if we are going to dump and then pump. But I'm learning too as we go through the cycle. I'm learning things to look for that maybe I wasn't looking for at the time. And so yes, I mean this looks very very bullish. Other indicators we could look at is wave trend. So let me go to the wave trend oscillator. This is one of my favorite indicators. And look what happened here. We got down into the negative, about negative 14.46, and we're trending up, and we're almost about to cross the zero line for the first time in a while. I mean, since over a month, we're about to cross the zero line. And this could take us back into the red region. Would not be surprised at all if that happened. You can see that that's setting up nicely. Another thing I want to show you, I've been talking about this a lot in my Telegram group, is the ADX and DI. We're about to have a bullish cross on the ADX and DI, and the ADX, this white signal line indicates trend strength. It's pretty much bottoming out. And just to throw in another volatility indicator, the RVI, or relative volatility index, looks to be turning up. Look at that. Look how bullish that looks. So I can't ignore this. I have to abandon my theory that I thought that we're going to dump. I actually think we're very likely to just pump straight into a cycle ending top. That's what things are sort of setting up to look like right now. Like you can even see on the RBI, you could see like almost like a shoulder here, a head here, and a shoulder here. Like this looks like it's going to be a very massive move to the upside. And then it just, we of course have to look at other things besides these indicators. But ADX and DI looks like it's turning up, like trend strength is about to increase. Definitely seems like we're getting a bullish leg. How high we go, nobody knows for sure. Um, so we're going to have to start looking at some metrics. And let me talk. The Gauss ribbon. Let's kind of like end this video where we started it. The Gauss ribbon is a really good momentum indicator. And we might say, well, how many green bubbles and red bubbles do you usually get in a cycle? And so that's a really great question. And I feel like we should go all the way back to the very beginning of Bitcoin's history and kind of see how the green and red bubbles have played out. And maybe we can also get some idea of what we might expect since this is a representation of past momentum patterns. So let's do that. Let's go back to 2011 and track all the way to present day and count the bubbles and see what they look. Okay, so there wasn't enough data with Bitcoin back in 2011, before 2011, to get a Gauss bubble. So we have no idea what that would have looked like should a Gauss, or sorry, Gauss ribbon, should a Gauss ribbon had existed. But we get one Gauss ribbon, the green pinch point, the dump. We get a flat red Gauss ribbon, and then we have pretty much a straight on bull market, right? And then we get like this fattening Gauss ribbon that tries to come, to pinch to red, but it just expands. So you had one really big Gauss ribbon here, one big green one. And this was the 2013 dump, and it didn't even trigger red on the Gauss ribbon. Okay, but then we went from green to red. We had one red bubble that just looked like it was about to go green, but it stayed red. So I would count this as two red bubbles. Okay, and this is heading into 2016, which was just one giant green bubble, right? One giant green bubble, especially towards the end. This is just measuring this upside volatility, and then we went red, and the duration of that red bubble, we tried to pump into it, and the 2019 pump didn't start to happen until we were starting to turn into a green bubble, and we got this brief green bubble, and then we went into this red bubble, very similar to what's happening today. And you have to wonder, if COVID hadn't happened and we hadn't gone into a recession, would this have happened? I don't think it would have. I actually think it would have started kind of trending up a little bit more. Of course, hindsight's always 2020, and it did happen. Okay, it did happen. We did test that bottom point. This was a very flat Gauss bubble, and it even started out kind of flat. I mean, they always do, right? But then we got this giant green Gauss bubble. Okay, sound like I'm saying gas bubbles. um, and we dumped into it. We got a red Gauss bubble, pumped out of that. Green Gauss bubble, dumped into it. Red Gauss bubble, pumped into it. Bear market. And we just had a pretty elongated Gauss bubble. So, if you study the history of Bitcoin, it doesn't seem like these bubbles stay green like forever, right? We're about to get a red one. And the last time we had a red one in 2021, sure, if we got a nice run up to a new all-time high, it wasn't that impressive. I think we have better momentum going right now. I mean, you look, we have a cup and handle forming. So this is something that's been pointed out on my channel by numerous people. Right, so you have your cup right here. I could draw it for you. If you guys know, drawing is not my specialty. But let's pull this down. And we have a cup right here, and let me just change that cup to roughly there. Okay, this is not a perfect drawing, so don't get mad about that. And then we're going to have some kind of handle that is forming. And I think we are on the verge of having a major breakout from this handle. And I think we'll still get a little bit of red. There'll be a red bubble to account for this momentum, right? Because the Gauss bubble is lagging, but this is ultimately a bull flag. So I think off to the races. Could we retest the 100-week HMA if we put that back in? Absolutely could. We could hit some resistance. I think we were likely to hit some resistance on the way up, and maybe retest, but then I think it's off to the races. And Where does the race end? Nobody really knows. Um, but just seeing how bullish of a setup this is, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this move towards some kind of blow off top in the early part of 2025, based on the momentum that you're seeing here and on all the indicators. So, again, this is just one person's thoughts and observations about Bitcoin and where things are going. I am very, very bullish for quarter four 2024. I'm bullish for the beginning of quarter one of 2025 at the moment. Beyond that, I just really don't know. What could change? I need more data to be able to speak further into the future, right? I need to see how high Bitcoin actually does go. I do not, I actually, I do want to say and be on the record saying this, that I think the bottom is in. I think this was the bottom. This move to 48-ish, I think that's the bottom. And I think that actually tested the structure over here from January. And it's kind of weird that we never really tested the structure at 31,000, but maybe we're going to do that in the bear market. Maybe in the bear market, we'll actually test my red zones one more time after, when the recession hits. That's what I'm thinking. So again, I don't know how high things are going to go, but I think that they're going to go a lot higher than people probably think. And, we could be way up here, close to 200K. And then as we get close to like a rate cut floor, maybe we could start our bear market maybe next year for all we know, with a nice dead cat bounce maybe in the summer. And by the end of the year, we could be sinking pretty damn low. Um, into 2026, and possibly break logarithmic regression on a recession. It could happen. This is not necessarily my base case. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is bullishness is very likely to happen in Q4, but I've given you the data, right? I It's just so weird because every time Bitcoin's had a death cross. By the way, I've been pointing at a chart that you can't see, so let me go ahead and put that up. But what I was just saying is that a situation like this could play out, right? Where you pump real hard and then dump into a bear market down to the third to my red zones. But yeah, I mean, no analyst is psychic. We simply do not know without the data. But I have enough data now to be hyper bullish on quarter four. So I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think it's a wise decision for me to abandon my red zone of 42 to 51K and just throw it out and say Bitcoin has bottomed with the data that I have? Is that too risky? And if you believe, like I do, that things are about to get very hyper bullish going into the end of the year, then how do you position yourself? I'd like to look at that in my next video. I would like to talk about the altcoin market and answer a question that some people in my group, again, the Snake Pit Telegram, sorry, over here, they've been asking, which is, are we currently in altcoin season? And so that's something I want to talk about in my next video. Stick around for that. This is Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to this video and subscribe to this channel. Sorry, I'm really bad at these YouTube exits. And but most of all, I love to see you. And I can't point the right way either. Let's see my Telegram group, Snake Pit. So nothing in here is financial advice. These are just my current thoughts on the market. So let me know what you think again in the comments or on my Telegram group, and I'll see you next time for a video on the altcoin market. Bye.